From the heart of Europe to the world, this is RTI.
And this is Postcard from Poprad with me, Eric Wiltsher, on a gloriously sunny day. Although I've got aching bones, but I'll get to that in a minute. It's lovely and warm here. What is it in the 25 degrees? Ah, lovely, perfect. Couldn't be better. And we can still see the beautiful Tatras Mountains behind us. It's wonderful. And sweating over there in Spain, it's Leigh Banks.
Right, just having a quick shift in my sheep neats, teat pleats. Yeah, right.
That's two
I was listening.
That's two lots of teeth that don't work.
No, my teeth work perfectly. I was just reminding people of what happened 2 minutes ago.
Ah. Do they need reminding?
I think so. When you make a cock up, I think people should know. Yes.
You see, he started already, ain't he, boys and girls? He started already.
The Consumer Watch Foundation once yet.
That's a record. That's the ultimate record. He's done it already. We'll be coming along to Postcard from Poprad later on in the programme. The Consumer Watch Foundation. But we're going to be serious for a minute because Leigh is obviously over there in Spain and got his finger in the pulse of what's going on. We have a lot of basic facts about the suspected terrorists. I would prefer to say them terrorists because I think they are, and a whole bunch of other people. Some of them have been caught, some of them wearing explosive belts, etc., etc. I'm going to hand over to Leigh for the latest.
Well, yeah, I don't think there's any doubt at all that it is a terrorism attack. In fact, ISIS have actually claimed it.
Yeah, they claim everything, Leigh, don't they?
Well, they do, but they haven't actually claimed some of the smaller ones in recent months because I think they've adopted the attitude that people are catching on that they'll just claim anything. Mm. You know, a bus crash in the centre of Manchester would be claimed by ISIS at one point. But they've claimed this, and they've found a cell which got blown up. And they're still trying to track down people. The saddest thing is, Spain is a place that I love, and we're a long way away from Barcelona at the moment. But the general...
Well, I have to say this, in my opinion, that's a good idea.
Well, yeah, it is. But the general atmosphere on the streets and in the cafes, even at lunchtime today, I had a wander out and... just talk to various people, is one of complete and utter despair. The human stories that are coming out of it are really, really tragic. There is, for instance, a British boy aged 7. He's just lost. Nobody can find anything of him. There is nothing there. There's a story about an Italian father who was holding on to his son's hand, trying to go. Yeah, died while he was holding his son's hand. And now, really, the major story of the day is the hunt for the missing. Where have they gone? Where are they? What happened? You know, I know La Rambla, as I'm sure you do. La Rambla is a long, straight, very wide parade. Once was a road and now has become a tree-lined... It's very often used for markets and things like that, but it's surrounded by cafes and pavement life takes place there every day. There are vendors on the street. There are entertainers on the street. It's a fabulous place. It leads down to the beaches and to the harbours, and for this to happen there is just absolutely outrageous. And the sadness of it is that Spain is rapidly becoming one of the most attacked countries in Europe.
But I fail to see, Leigh, what they think they're going to achieve with it, apart from notoriety.
Well, exactly. Well, notoriety is one of the things, but what they actually can achieve is something that we've talked about quite regularly, and it is fear. What they're trading on is absolute fear. Mm. Yeah, I'm not afraid where we are here, but because we're in the Costa Blanca. However, it does cross your mind. Well, why couldn't it happen here? Thousands and thousands and thousands of tourists here, and it's that creation of fear in every city, in every country of the world that doesn't belong to ISIS as far as they're concerned. And it's that creation of fear. And that is what undermines life in the Western world. And more dramatic and more frightening is that they actually are turning us against ourselves. And by that I mean, Muslims who are good Muslims, who've been here for all their lives or have been in Britain for all their lives, are now becoming the targets of hatred. And that creates a war within your own castle, within your own environment. It's like a Trojan horse getting in there. They are creating fear and terror on our streets, and they are using us to do it.
So basically, they're playing divide and separate.
Yeah, it's the oldest and one of the best tried techniques of war ever.
Yeah,
turn the enemy against itself.
Yeah, and it does work. The trouble is, it really does work, and they are smart. You got to say that one of the main things that they're knowledgeable of, and I'm not going to use the word good because I don't think good fits, but knowledgeable. They are knowledgeable about the internet. They're knowledgeable about the media. They've even got their own TV channel going now.
Absolutely.
And it is terrible what they're doing, because the biggest problem is those that aren't, and I say this with respect, those that aren't very smart look at it and go, "Oh, I'll have some of that."
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how they turn us against ourselves.
Yeah. And the people at the top, I'll tell you now, they don't give a damn about these people, whether they live or die. And I'm talking about their own people. They don't care.
No.
Because they have no absolute feelings for them whatsoever. And therefore, they are the ultimate communist-style users of people, which is absolutely tragic. It really is.
But it is, people's go on about the religion, and that isn't a religious thing. Yes, the Muslims or the people of that religion believe that they will go on to a better life once they leave this earth. But so do we. So do Christians. There is no difference in that belief. What it is, when it becomes a twisted parody of what people believe, and that's what ISIS sell to people.
Yes, they do.
And it's the opportunity, and believe me, this is the truth. It's the opportunity to carry out violent acts. That's what attracts people. We live in a homogenized world where communication between human being and human being is getting less and less and less because of the internet, because of handheld games, because of computer games, because of television, because of all these things which isolate the individual. And then you move into a fantasy world. You move into this world that you focus on behind a flat screen. And
I think that is very prevalent in Spain. I'd agree. I'll give you a perfect example.
Yeah.
The expat Brits that live in Spain live behind a walled garden. They lock themselves away, have fish and chips, and watch Sky Sports.
Oh yeah,
it's not real.
No, absolutely not. But it's more to the. If I'm sorry to mention it, but really, if you do read the Consumer Watch Foundation this week, there is a very in-depth story about the fact that the child czar for Britain, I can't remember her name now, Littlewood, I think she's called, has come out with a big statement saying that children are living on computers. That children as young as 3 are spending hours a week on the internet and on handheld computers.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Whoa.
What?
What did she do when she was little? Plonk herself in front of the goggle box, the haunted fish tank, and sit there watching telly.
Yeah, but it's a different thing.
No, it's not.
Well, it is. Yeah, of course it is. It's television, something like radio. You shared with you could go all the way through the whole of the entertainment thing. That from theatre, you were isolated, but you were in a crowd and you held your neighbour's hand, you had a laugh together. Television, you sit there with your family.
But they didn't, Leigh. A lot of these people had TVs in their bedrooms, the kids did.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying that's where it didn't start.
No, but the isolation of people, and radio is a perfect example because radio is a single entertainment vehicle. People listen to radio on their own now, not as a family.
And in the car.
And in the car. Yeah. So you get this whole thing whereby people are definitely on their own for a great period of time, and now the soft target is actually the internet, when the truth is it should be those in charge, the peers of those children, saying no.
Yeah, 100% behind you.
And that's the key. They're just fudging it, in my opinion.
Well, but listen to what she says. She says that I don't know. We're going off subject a little bit.
That's all right.
But they're saying that 3 and 4 year olds are spending sorry, I misread that. Last year, the time 3 and 4 year olds were spending online was 6 hours 48 minutes. That's gone up now to 8 hours 18 minutes.
Yeah, but why?
But then you've got to. Well, I'll tell you something about that after. But you've got to then add into that then they go and watch television as well. So that isolation becomes bigger and bigger.
Double. Now, but my question is, why are they being allowed to sit there as a 3-year-old on a tablet? Now, I will accept, before anybody jumps up and down, things like CBeebies and CBBC, where they have educational games during the afternoon. That's fine.
Yeah.
But when it gets to just being online for being online and being an unpaid babysitter, that's where I find it offensive.
And you know what else? The other reason that it happens, and we've witnessed this more and more. In fact, I ended up having a row I didn't end up having a row in a bar.
No, if you'd have had a row in a bar, I'd have seen it on Sky News. The police would have been called.
But it was getting to the point where it could have done. Because what happens now, particularly in Spain, because Spain life tends to take off from 10 o'clock at night into the early hours of the morning.
Yeah.
And what adults do now is they take their children to the bars. But they don't sit there and talk to the children. They buy the kids whatever they're having, with a fizzy drink, whatever they're having. They give the kid a handheld device, and then they take out their telephones and sit there and read what's on their Facebook. So the whole family is sitting in a bar and ignoring each other. Why not stay at home and ignore your children?
Well, there is that to it. And, of course, the added injury there is giving kids fizzy drinks. They're never going to go to sleep at night because they're all sugar mad.
Well, that's so they're all up all night on the internet as well.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm sorry, the harsh reality is that the internet is not an unpaid babysitter. I've been saying it for decades now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Unless you get the parents to sort themselves out, the children don't stand a chance, because unless the parent says no, the children quite rightly assume it's okay.
Well, exactly, and if you act by what your parents do. You are, if your parents are sitting there on a telephone, you sit there on a telephone.
Yeah,
that's what it is. The isolation that handheld devices are causing are just absolutely incredible. Well, I say we're digressing from.
Yeah, we are a bit, but let's move on a bit. Bernard Kenny, the pensioner who tried to save the life of Joe Cox, has sadly passed away at the age of 79. What a nice bloke.
It is, and what a tragedy. He did his best. He's had his life, and he's done it and did it well. And let's face it, he went out on a blaze of glory.
Yeah, what a bloke. I mean, you can't knock the guy for it, because
he's a hero.
The door's shut. Darn it, I'm getting hot. I wonder why that was. He It was just good old-fashioned British stiff upper lip.
Exactly, and well done to him. And it's sad that he is no longer in this world. There's a lot of other people who perhaps shouldn't be.
Correct. Mr. Nakayima, who played Godzilla. Well, that wasn't bad for me. He's died at the tragic age of 88. He was an absolute, apparently a specialist in playing giant monsters.
He was the man who always got in the suit. And actually, it wasn't because he was ugly, because we've seen pictures of him. He was quite a handsome chap.
All right.
And he just cornered the market in playing big, ugly monsters. And Godzilla. See, Godzilla was the first presenter of Top Gear, you know.
Excuse me?
Sorry. Well, they're always calling Jeremy Clarkson a gorilla, so I just thought I'd say Godzilla was the first presenter of Top Gear, Joe.
No, he's an ape. He's known as an ape. Not a Godzilla, an ape. A big one, yes, but not one of those.
Anyway, let's send him some good wishes as well, the poor chap.
Yes, why not? We can do that today because, as you probably noticed, Rachel's not with us this week. Get well soon, Rach. Really do. Get well soon, kid. And we'll hopefully see you next week. Richard Gordon, the creator of one of the most fantastic sitcoms, Doctor in the House, has died. He was just amazing. And he had a grand old age, 95 years. He
did very well. And
there's hope for me yet.
What, you think you'll get to 95? Yeah, you think you can just round your waist?
I'm thinking of getting to 95 just to haunt you.
Well, that's the best odds you'll ever have, because you'll still be alive. That'd be brilliant.
Hey, boys and girls, he was nice to me. Take notice. But it was a brilliant... If you've never seen it, I'm sure it's around somewhere where you can watch it or get buy a DVD. Doctor in the House. It was a very clever, light-hearted series. And it was kind of like the reality of being in a hospital. That was the good thing about it.
That's right. In the house.
Yeah, in the house.
The other one would have been Doctor in the Hospital.
I absolutely agree. Now, I know I'm going to get this young lady's name wrong, because I probably will. Yusafa Fazia? I could never say that.
Yeah, I know.
It's really hard for me. I'm very sorry, young lady. She, in my book, is an absolute star. She was the young lady that the Pakistan Taliban tried to assassinate.
How old was she? She was 12, wasn't she?
Probably a little bit older, I think. Somebody will correct us in a moment, I'm sure. Yeah. But 15. She was 15. She was gunned down by the Taliban because she wanted to go to school. And the bottom line, this is where the first story we had comes the other full circle. Yeah. She fought. Now, I know the doctors did so much for her, but she fought, and even though it was a tremendously tragic wound in the head, she's actually celebrating her A-level results, which confirm her place in Oxford University. What a girl!
Well, yeah, what can you say? That's the kind of thing that should be presented to the youth of today, to say, look, when you think you're moaning a bit because you don't live in a big posh house and you don't have horses and your dad doesn't drive around in a 4x4, so you think you've got a life's all mistreated you. That's how life mistreats you, and that's how you come back fighting, and that's how you win.
Well, actually, I mean, nowhere near, and I say nowhere near her level of absolute determination.
Yeah.
But it's like kids, because it's school time now, I'm sure there's some kids listening at the moment. If your teacher says you're never going to do anything, you don't take no notice of them. You really don't. And this is absolutely true. I can remember it, Leigh, as if it was yesterday. That's how much it impacted on my brain. And when I was at school, we used to have the thing called the 11 plus in England, where if you were the smart kid, you went to grammar school, and if you were the thicko, you went to secondary modern, like me. And my headmaster at 11 years old was there, because all your parents had to go as well, so my dad was there, and he said, Dennis, Eric's never going to do anything. Why don't you get him a job on the line at Vauxhall now? Book one up for him. And I thought, you cheeky so-and-so.
Monkey.
But you couldn't say anything when you're 11 years old. And wherever that gentleman now happens to be, a huge raspberry to you, sir, because actually...
you worked in the jam factory.
Well, no, the truth is, I think it probably inspired me even more to do the things I knew I could do. And I think a lot of the problem with all those things was that in many cases people do not see the talent inside people. And apparently Dave was told something very similar. I was told I would never make anything of my life by playing with tape machines and record decks at lunchtime in school.
And I was told that I would never make anything of my life because all I did was sit there writing. What a ludicrous thing to say. Like you say, I think you hit the nail on the head. People in our era...
Yeah, go on, Leigh, go on.
People in our era didn't highlight the talents of the young. What they did was try to fit the young into what they thought society
Correct.
needed.
And let's have a look at this just for fun.
Yeah.
So... if you are one of these kids at school, or you've got a child at school, teenager, and the teachers are always being negative about them, there's a good chance that what they're actually being negative about is something they don't understand or want to understand.
Spot on.
and when you look at it, he's going to get all embarrassed and red-faced now, but when you look at Leigh's career, apart from being a complete rebel all the way through, you know, he's worked at the biggest newspapers in the UK, probably the world. He's edited the darn things. He's got awards for writing headlines. He's done so much stuff in his life. He's a published author. And, you know, and the fact is, this numpty at his school said, oh, he's never going to be anything. But, you know, what did they achieve? Not a lot.
They wanted people to become cogs within wheels.
Yes.
And it was education. There's no doubt about it. And I know a lot of people deny this, but it's wrong to deny it because it's simple truth. Education is there for the perpetuation of society, not the perpetuation of the individual. And there are certain people like you were born with the gift of a golden voice. Now we're being nice to each other.
No, I wouldn't say that, but never mind.
with an ability an ability with audio and an innate understanding of how to present. And that at that time was not within the remit of the normal man.
No, of course not. I mean, you look at Dave. When I first met him, and he's now going to go red-faced, and I hope he's not got his team around him at work. I met him as a funny little kind of nervous teenager at a charity radio station that was being set up in the UK. Dave was into his buttons and tapes and stuff, and right at that time I thought, hello, I've got a live one here. Apparently he's at home, it's safe. But anyway, the fact is he's gone on to go from, you know, a librarian, which I still think is quite an important job.
Nothing wrong with being a librarian.
But a librarian in a media company, up to the boss of a facilities house. He's done live television across the world, live radio across the world. If you look him up on the interweb, there's tons about him there because he's done tons of stuff. Yeah. And it makes you wonder why these people couldn't understand what the tape machine and the record decks were at lunchtime at his school. And the answer is they weren't clever enough to do it.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head.
And that's it.
And let's upset all the teachers now.
Dorothy's going to be on the thing.
Well, the simple fact is, teachers teach because they don't do. And what they don't want the children to do is things they don't understand. I'm not saying that is so much today, so prevalent today, but in the past it was.
Yeah.
And that's it. I was sent inexplicably I was sent to a technical college. All I could do
What,
was...
you?
Yeah. All
They
I could
said,
do
whoa,
was
whoa, whoa. Well, they sent you to a technical college? Were they dreaming?
11 years old, that's what they decided. Well, all he likes to do is write and do acting, and he wants to be a performer, and all he can do is draw things and paint, and he's really good at it. So yeah, send him to technical college, teach him about technical drawing and stuff like that. That'll do him good.
Unbelievable. But it is true that they, and I have. Just while we're on the subject, I have another fabulous story for you from a lady that used to work for me in Ashford in Kent. And apparently her son was the biggest waste of space ever. He was coming up to 16. He wasn't accepted into the additional year because apparently he wasn't smart enough, this lad. And she said, look, Eric, I've got a chance of getting him to work for a retailer.
Yeah.
But he's got to do work experience first. The school won't help, and it's got to be an honest write-up or report about the lad. So I said, bring him in, we'll have him. And I brought him in, and his instinctive knowledge of what consumer items do and don't do was actually quite scary.
Yeah,
because I'm ready to teach him all this stuff, and he's already knowing it. I'm going, what? Because I really didn't, and I'm thinking, well, why didn't the school do it? So anyway, we set him on proper tasks like a school would do, and he had to. Back then, he set up a satellite dish for me from nothing. He had to learn how to do it himself, which he did, and he did various other things. And so I wrote the report up. He went to work for a well-known electrical retailer in the UK. Last heard, he was a regional manager.
Yeah.
Now, that ain't bad for somebody who's useless.
Absolutely. There's a lot of useless people in this world who do really well for themselves.
Funny that. Yeah, funny that. Thousands line Portsmouth seafront as the HMS Queen Elizabeth. I got cross again, Leigh.
Oh, no. Why?
Because there was some people whinging and going, oh, it cost all this money, and it's all this and all that. And I go,
was that Jeremy Corbyn?
I didn't say, I can't do him. But they were. And I'm thinking, do you realise how many people had jobs because of building this ship?
Yeah.
Do you realise how the image of the UK has been enhanced because of this state-of-the-art stealth flagship aircraft carrier? And it's a stealth aircraft carrier. It's not your average little boat with two bits coming down towards the water. It's a proper stealth device. And you know what? I want to pay tribute to the people that built her, to the people that are stationed on her, to the people that will live on her for months and months at a time, and to the naysayers, go stick your head in the water.
Absolutely. Look, when you just think about it, listen, we're inexorably leaving Europe.
Right.
Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, that's what's happening to us. And we need to make statements that say, look at us. We are brilliant.
Yes.
That's not showing off. That's saying this is what we can do. And this is a fabulous
It's called marketing your country.
That's right. We're also in a world that is in a state of flux with two harebrained, and I use harebrained particularly because look at their haircuts, who are actually on the brink of sending this world into yet another world war. We've already got a world war going on. Now they want to bring in another one. So we need to be there. Instead of saying Jeremy Corbyn said, oh, well, we need to jar, not war. We need to actually look at things like this and say, this is the power that we've got. We stand alone, but we will stand with everybody else too. And this is the kind of firepower we have.
I don't necessarily... I think it's more than firepower, Leigh. More.
Yes. Go on, mate.
It's more than firepower. It's actually the ability, and those that are in the know, far more informed than me on this particular subject, will understand how difficult it is to fight a stealth aircraft carrier. That's what for those that have seen it. That's why it's got all the funny shapes. Well, they can't. Well, they can a little bit, but not too much. But the fact is, that's why it's a funny shape compared to the old-fashioned aircraft carrier. You know, and it does hide itself almost. It's a bit like Star Wars cloaking stuff, Star Trek. And we are at that stage now. There are so many countries who are still playing with Lego kits while the UK's building these aircraft carriers. And it shows a good message, and it also shows the skill set of the UK, which can then be marketed to either bring business to the UK or offer consultancy work out from the UK to many other countries. I don't understand why people are knocking it.
I can't understand why people can't see. People don't understand. People don't understand business. People don't understand governments. People just don't understand. And that's fair enough. Not everybody in the world has to understand the workings and the paraphernalia of how everything is put together and how it keeps going. But the people who attack it, the people who actually attack it, that's a totally different...
Well, I've got one question for the naysayers. Everybody, well, not everybody, most people know the rough workings of the television handset. When it comes to how the television itself works, they have no idea.
Well, that's right, but they don't just sit there and say, that's a load of crap, that television.
No.
That should be banned. Right? Who invented it? It should be stood up against the wall and shot.
Yeah.
No, they don't understand it, but they accept that it works. Like, what did Michael Fallon say? Michael Fallon said, today we welcome our mighty new warship to her home for the very first time. She is Britain's statement to the world.
I think at that point we'll take a commercial break.
RTI.
Everybody okay? Remember your training, all right?
RNLI lifeboat crews are unpaid volunteers. They rescue 22 people every day. On a lifeboat, training is a matter of life and death, and it costs £1,000 a year for each crew member. As a charity, we receive no UK government funding, so our crew's safety depends entirely on your donations. Please call 0800 543 210 and donate £20 or whatever you can afford. Because next time, this could be for real.
RTI.
And I would urge you to give to the RNLI. They do tremendous work. And honestly, you never know when you need them. And the people that go out, and this ties into where I'm going next, and save people's lives is just phenomenal. Just phenomenal. And quite a few of my buddies have been taken off of radio ships by Breacher's Boy, by the RNLI, and for that, gentlemen, we thank you immensely, because you're wonderful people. We do indeed. He's going to chastise me for this. I know he is.
I'm not.
You're not?
I might do.
You probably will.
I might not.
I think you will.
This could go up for the rest of the programme.
This is not going well. It won't go well in a minute. As you know, we celebrated the 14th of August, 1967, or commemorated it on Monday. Actually, Dave's done an amazing programme, which you can hear again on Sunday evening on RTI, all kind of quasi-connected to it. It's a flaming good show. And if you missed Monday's programmes, there's a sister station called RTI Offshore, which you find on our website, and you can listen to the whole day again, and it's going round and round till the end of the month. But it just shocked me, Leigh, that the reporting of the facts of offshore was not even close to the truth.
Why?
Well, one story, Radio Caroline continued to broadcast on and off until the early 90s, before returning 5 years ago as an online station. What a load of old rubbish.
Why?
Because, yes, it did have a little pause when the ship went on the Goodwin Sands and it came into Dover Harbour, at which time there was the first licence issued. This isn't the first one. The first licence was issued in Dover for 28 days, so to do a thank you broadcast.
Yes.
Either the same year or the year after, me, myself and I, with Jerry Powell and a couple of other people, we put together through what was called at the time the Caroline Partnership, an application to the Ofcom for a broadcast licence on satellite, which they were subsequently granted, and they carried on broadcasting throughout the 90s and into the noughties. They did not go off the air in the 1990s at all.
They were never off the air.
Well, they were for little spits and spats here and there, and they were...
How many little spits and spats?
Well, in 1968 they went off the air, for sure, because they couldn't afford to pay the bills, so the tender people cut the anchor chain and towed it away.
Come on, stop padding. How many times?
I don't remember how many. 1, 2, 3... In long periods of time, which I consider more than like a day when a transmitter goes off, there was probably 1, 2, 3, 4 main periods where it went off the air. So it didn't continue to broadcast anywhere near the way it was portrayed, and it carried on in the 1990s, because the minute it came on, I and a couple of other people went to speak to some satellite broadcast stations and actually negotiated the continuation of Radio Caroline every day of the week.
Yoo-hoo.
Yes.
Yoo-hoo. Now, I quote you. I do not quote anybody else. I quote you. Right? Radio Caroline continued to broadcast on and off until the early 90s. Yeah. So, on your own admittance, it was on and off until the early 90s, when it continued perfectly before returning 5 years ago as an online station. Where's all the wrongness in that then?
Well, no, I put that right on the script today, which was taken from 2 broadcasters.
It did. It kept being on and off a bit, and then it went into the...
It didn't go off in the early 90s and then stop until 2012. So it wasn't off for like 2 decades. It was off.
Of course it was.
No, it was off for a couple of years.
Who got it wrong then?
Well, 2 major broadcasters, one being Sky News, the other one being the BBC.
Well, you're talking about the BBC. I'm surprised at Sky, but the BBC will be saying, oh, look, we got that wrong as well. Well done, chaps. That's perfect. Perfect reporting. We got it wrong again.
And it gets better, because both of them reported that Radio Luxembourg was a pirate radio station.
And wasn't it? I've reported it that way as well.
Totally and utterly wrong. It was licensed in the Grand Duchy. Originally, it was licensed in France. They moved the licence holding to the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg in the 30s. And from there on in, right till its end in 1992, it was a licensed station in the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg. It is, I mean... It's one of the things you might even risk using Wikipedia for, because even they couldn't get it wrong.
And didn't they get it wrong?
I don't know. I've never looked on there. I couldn't do that. But if you,
I always thought it was. I hold my hands up. In one of the stories I've carried recently, I lumped Luxembourg together with Caroline as a pirate station.
No,
I think that's just the way it was viewed. I apologise profusely. I apologise forever. I will throw myself on my own broadcasting stick.
But on Monday we did get some good news.
It was brilliant. Monday was brilliant. Even I listened.
It was just phenomenal. And I have to say a million thank you to everybody that listened in and sent lovely messages. You just fab, really are. But one listener wrote to me and said, I did listen to the BBC and Caroline, but spent most of the day tuned into RTI. It was the best.
It was. It was brilliant. I listened to the BBC one, Radio 2 one, in the evening. And I just sat there and thought, well, I've just heard this all earlier on RTI, so I switched it off.
Yeah. And I have to say, it goes back to the original thing. Don't put a monkey in to do a man's job.
Put a gorilla in.
Yeah, put a gorilla in instead. But a million thanks to and it was thousands upon thousands who tuned in on Monday. I'm very humbled by it all. And so just thank you. And before you can come in immediately, but before I forget, one of the most important thank yous has to be those pioneering broadcasters who went out on the North Sea and in the Irish Sea, the technicians, the backroom people, the people you never get to hear of that made it happen. Admittedly, Johnny Walker, Tony Blackburn, those are the sort of well-known names. But in truth, if it wasn't for all the other people that made the team up, they would never have been in there in the first place. So thank you to all those wonderful pioneering broadcasters who, whether this is a good or a bad thing, inspired me to get into radio.
I would back you wholeheartedly, and I would say whoever inspired you to get into radio was a genius, because you inspired me to get into radio.
Shall we tell the story about when you did your first broadcast?
Well, I didn't actually do my first broadcast, did I? Because I didn't turn up.
Okay, the one where you came into my old studio then.
Yeah. Yeah, go on then.
Well, but no, it's slightly embarrassing, isn't it?
I'll introduce it for you. Eric decided that he wanted me to come on RTI when it was a burgeoning new station, and he invited me, but then that was it. I said I'd do it, but then he didn't tell me anything about it. I didn't realise that in the radio days and the radio ways that actually that was all you'd hear. You wouldn't get a formal letter saying, can you turn up at 2:00? Can you bring your best suit? Can you dress it and stuff like that? I thought, well, he doesn't really want me, so I didn't turn up. He got really annoyed with me, told me off in the bar that night, and so I turned up the next day, or whenever it was, and now he can get over.
What?
I know, you can tell the stress.
No, you got... But the best bit was him sitting there, and I can't imagine how the Neanderthal-looking Leigh at the time was changed from a Neanderthal to a jellyfish. It was really funny. It just was so funny. But you got there in the end, didn't you?
We did. Can I just interject about pirate radio and Radio Caroline and everything? And this is in a totally positive way. I know that there were thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people who were there and have their own stories to tell about Radio Carolina, about that era of music and radio. And we've opened the doors at the ConsumerWatchFoundation.com to allow you to tell your own stories. Just jot down your notes. The stories that you tell to the ConsumerWatchFoundation.com today will be the stories that will be told on the 100th anniversary of the 14th of August.
You're actually right, because it will sit there on one of the archive sites. I'm going to run through a couple of stories because we are running short on time, boys and girls, with our meandering this week. Just a headline that the Australian Federal Court has ordered the blocking of 59 websites because they've been doing naughty piratical things, and so they've blocked them. This is very serious for our Australian listeners. Nearly 43,000 Australian Ford Focus owners are being urged to check if their cars are among those with a fault which could cause a fire. Now, these models were made between April the 12th, 2011 and September the 29th, 2015. And if you are one of the listeners in Australia, you got a car like that, go to your service station straight away or your dealer and have the darn thing checked, because I think that's terribly important. Some good news from satellite imagery. They think, this is not confirmed yet, that they could have found MH370, the aircraft that went down on its way to Australia. And it's still undecided as to whether the research have got it right or not, but there's a glimmer of hope that that something can be done. This is good news for anybody with allergies. Australian researchers have made a breakthrough in the treatment of deadly peanut allergies for children. It's a clinical trial that's been conducted at the Murdoch Children's Research Institute. And for some bizarre reason, it seems to work, but it's still in its infancy. They're still working on it. So it's not, you can't pop down to your pharmacy today and get anything for it. But it is incredibly positive move on forward. So you never know. It could be good. Bit of a row over Big Ben in London.
Well, it's yes, absolutely. They want to turn Big Ben's bong off.
They can't.
Well, exactly. Well, they can. That's the problem. They actually can. And you've got people who are saying things like Tom Brake. Who's Tom Brake? I don't know who he is, but anyways, they do it. Who say things like, I just get on with it. Switch them off. Those bongs, Tom, have never, ever...
They were not even switched off when the Luftwaffe were trying to bomb London in the Blitz.
Exactly.
They never went off.
And it's not that they want to turn them off for half an hour. They want to turn them off for 4 years.
Oh, there'll be some health and safety executive playing games there.
Well, it's about the fact that people who are working on the clock, because the clock needs mending. All clocks need mending at some stage.
Yeah.
And they've got to go and mend this one. And they have to go up the scaffold, and then every hour or every whatever it is, they'll get a big bong. And that'll upset
Why
the people.
can't they use the proper headgear which stops the bong hurting your head?
Because they're only to be used in extreme circumstances according to health and safety. And health and safety say these are not extreme circumstances because all they've got to do is turn the big bong off.
Yeah, or why can't they do something with technology and turn the clock off but keep the bong going on big speakers?
Because then they'll make all the people who had mended it go deaf.
They won't.
Big bongs are a problem. I know my way around big bongs.
I'm sure you do. Rather annoyed about this because we gave this bloke credit and we shouldn't have done. The homeless man that was labelled a hero for helping in the Manchester bombing has well...
He's been shot.
He's been nicked.
He's been nicked, and if he's done it, it's disgusting. If he hasn't done it, then it's a terrible thing that he's been arrested for it.
Yep. Well, allegedly, he took credit cards from a grandmother who was at the terrible bombings, and then used them later on.
After he'd been given loads of money by well-wishers.
Yeah, who set up this...
52 grand, you know, he got £52,000 out of this.
Yeah, and it's quite... there was a lot of really nice people who maybe couldn't afford to give him money, but did on a crowdfunding service to help him have a new start. And there he was sitting there with a potential... Well, we don't know yet.
Potentially. No, that's the problem. It's fair to say that he's been arrested for it and he's being investigated over it. We can't really berate him because think about the American who was arrested after because of that woman who was pushed over by a jogger. Yeah. Well, you know, we could have all gone to hell and back, destroying his reputation and accusing him of all sorts of things.
Yeah, but if you remember, what did we do? We said, hold on till it's been proved.
Absolutely.
And that's the right thing to do. I'm rather surprised the next story hasn't found its way to some of the main news points, which I don't think it has. I could be wrong.
So you tell me which it is.
A cyber attack on the Scottish Parliament's IT system will probably last a few more days. Officials have warned. This centres around MSPs, which is the member of the Scottish Parliament, and staff were locked out of their email accounts after hackers launched what they describe as a brute force cyber attack to actually crack passwords earlier in the week. And, you know, what you have to remember is that Scotland actually has access to stuff in Westminster.
Of course it does.
Because it has to. And I cannot believe why this has not been a mainline story. I mean, I know there's been some terrible other news around in the world which could have pushed it down the news bits a bit, but it still makes me, well, concerned
I have to say, I'm not trying to shoot you down.
No.
It did appear in the Independent, the Register, the Scotsman, Scottish Television, Sky News, the Guardian.
Yeah, but it wasn't a mainline story. That was my point. It should be a lead story. It's so dangerous.
It's not a front page story, no. And I in my own world, I would not have made it a front page story.
Well, I'd have thought something that could access records in the Houses of Parliament.
I can see where you're coming from, but it's just
Maybe people didn't know. We'll let them off.
And thank you very much.
You're welcome. Teenage girls have been driven away from social media, according to some research coming out of Australia. And do you know what? I have to say, the way Facebook are behaving at the moment, I can understand that. I really can. Well, there was actually, it was a Muslim lady. There was an attack on a Muslim lady because she was wearing a burkini in the water.
I know where you're going, yeah.
And people were, berating her and saying that she was smelly, dirty, horrible, and all sorts of things. And I took umbrage at this. And what was ironic was, on one side, Facebook were removing this imagery and the words that were put there. Another guy would do it and go, oh, well, we understand you're very concerned about this, but it doesn't breach our rules, or whatever they call it, community rules.
Oh, breastfeed does.
And I went back to him and I said, so you're telling me that Facebook supports racism?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, 900 pictures were taken away the other day.
Really?
Yeah, but it only leaves another 7,000 to go. And yet this morning, so they've taken down buckets of pictures, right?
Yeah.
Today I got one back. Although it doesn't breach our community rules, well, hang on, you've already taken it down from everywhere else on your same website. What are you doing?
I think you should write this for us.
Well, I've already written to them, so I shall publish the outcome. That'll be the easy way out of that one. Don't always cover these stories, but I think it's quite noteworthy. Tens of thousands of trees, and it hits me because of the fires and the devastation here in the Tatras. In the north and the west of Poland, due to these incredible storms that they've been having. And there was actually 6 people killed last weekend, including 2 girl guides. That were crushed under falling trees. And it is very difficult because the people here are very, very defensive of nature. They don't like chopping trees down. There's all sorts of bans on doing this, that and the other, and there's a big barney between the EU and Poland over it. But it is very, very difficult. And I just want to say, because we are no more than 45 minutes, 60 minutes away from them, our heartfelt feelings go out to you, and I know nothing will ever make it better, but maybe a little bit of time will help you. I don't know. We're going to go light-hearted towards the end. This is, well, it's not one for Leigh now. Scientists have actually worked. I could never understand, and I've had several garden ponds in my life, why these little goldfish and little koi carp, when the water becomes a block of ice, and yet when it thaws out, they start moving again. And I'm thinking, how did they do that?
Yeah.
But we now know why.
They got drunk.
They did.
Exactly. Do you realise that some goldfish were found to have levels well above the legal drink driving limit? Well, it's a good job they don't have cars then, isn't it?
Exactly. But they were driving in the water, if you think about it.
Were they? I suppose they were, in a sort of, in a submarine sort of way.
Yes, they were indeed.
They should be arrested. All goldfish should be arrested for being drunk in charge of submarines.
Well, apparently what happens for the science bit, fish turn lactic acid in their bodies into alcohol, which is the way they stay alive. So Leigh's gone out to buy about 50,000... little goldfish now, hoping to collect alcohol from them.
I'm going to drink goldfish from now on.
Yes, and as we know, the Daily Express is one of Leigh's favourites, alongside the Daily Mail. Big thing in there this week: wine is the key to a longer life.
Well, it isn't. I found out by stopping drinking this week. I found out it isn't. I've lived 3 weeks this week by not having any because everything takes so much longer. Do you know, a really good friend of mine who was a really, really heavy drinker, phenomenally heavy drinker, had to stop because he'd done too much of it. And he sat there and he said, you know, the worst part of not drinking is, I said, no, what? He says, nothing funny happens anymore.
I get the drift, but I highlight it because you know this goes ping pong all the time. One minute you get the headline, "Wine is a killer. You must not touch it," and then 5 minutes later you get, "Wine is the key to your longer life."
Yeah, but they say you only have one. You see, I look at it this way. Right, it says here, if you have 1 glass of wine a day,
yes,
right, you'll live longer. All right, and then if you have 10 glasses of wine a day, you'll live 10 times longer.
No.
But then the next day they tell you you've got that wrong.
Well, I just wondered if you could kind of like balance it out.
Have 5 and live exactly as
No, because if you have a glass of wine a day, now
yes.
I don't go out drinking very, very, very little these days, actually, for no inexplicable reason.
And he's a very good drinker, actually. You know, he can drink and drink and drink.
I have been known to. And so typically my week of alcohol is purely a Wednesday evening at the English Poprad group where we have a glass of wine in the Cork Wine Bar. Now, if I'm allowed 1 a day, can I have 7 on Wednesday and just average it out?
Now, can I tell you...
Now, there's the thing, you see.
Yes. Can I tell you a theory based on that?
Go on, then.
This is because it is supporting what you've said exactly. And it's a conversation I had with my doctor.
Right.
He said to me, right, that if you have a drink on a Wednesday, then you're not to have a drink on a Thursday. Because what you need to do is not have a drink. If you're drinking, don't have a drink the next day. You need to have 24 hours in between drinking. Yeah?
Doesn't work, my theory, does it?
Well, no, listen, because what I said to the doctor, and he was a bit dumbfounded and never actually answered me, was this. So, well, because of the way I work, I don't actually start drinking until 10 o'clock at night. And I stop drinking at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I drink for 4 hours. Then I don't have an alcoholic drink until the 10 o'clock the next night. That means I've not had an alcoholic drink for 20 hours in that day. Is 20 hours the equivalent to 24 in reality? Does that mean I'm having a day off from drinking every day that I drink?
No, it's a good angle, but I'm afraid I'm not buying it.
Why?
Well, because you've got 4 hours left over.
What a load of rubbish!
Right, and there is another thing in the Express this week, which I actually think is wonderful on the front page. It's good old Len Goodman. If you don't know who he was, was a judge on a dancing programme on the BBC in the UK, and he actually says, "Don't ever retire," warns Len, and it's really bizarre. Because a couple of weeks ago, I was talking, name dropping here, I was talking to Emperor Roscoe about his trip to the UK in September. And I said, do you know what? I love the way you keep young. And he said, that's why I don't retire. I carry on working because it keeps me young. And I thought, do you know what? The amount of people that clamour towards 65 or whatever it is now, and they go, right, tomorrow I'm going to do nothing and it's going to be wonderful. 5 minutes later, they're dead.
Well, they've died of boredom.
Yes. And I think
true.
the next bit could be slightly boring if we're not careful. What are you doing this weekend, chap?
Me?
Yes.
We're going to go and see some live bands at the not the old Sunrise Bar, the one that's been shut down, at the new Sunrise Bar, which has been set up in a different part of town. And the live bands are now playing there. And we're going to celebrate the fact that the live music is now back on in Torrevieja.
Nice one. Well, you're officially allowed to say, Wiltshire, get on your bike.
Oh, I know.
Yes, and the video's been there to prove it to everybody. I should be going for a little bike ride again at this weekend on my new very second-hand bike, but at least it goes up and down hills, although I did get rather out of puff doing it. So I think my mainstay of the weekend will be a bicycle ride. Good heavens. Time for Sooty and Sweep.
Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that was Postcard from Poprad on your normal time at a Friday. And don't forget, that you mustn't miss that programme on Sunday with Dave Rhodes. Up next, it's the one and only Mr. Steve Bishop. Have a great week till next week, because we're going to. It's going to be lovely. See you soon. Bye-bye.